I'm right in the middle of visiting my daughter's boyfriend, Evan's house. Let's eat together, as a new family. Risa, Evan's mom, taunts me by devouring pizza with relish. Yet, for some reason, I'm the only one with familiar instant noodles in front of me. My daughter, Wendy, sits opposite me, silent and head bowed. Risa leans in to look at her face. "Oh, Wendy, what's wrong?" "Don't worry, let's eat. From now on, we'll be your family instead of Rothy." Wendy looks at Risa coldly, ignores her words, walks briskly to my side, and says to me in a clear voice, "Let's go home." To which I nod. Sure. As we head to the entrance, an agitated Evan blocks our way. "Wendy, what are you doing?" "Thinking of going home. To avoid wasting any more time." "Huh? Do you even realize what you're saying?" Evan raises his voice in irritation, grabs her arm. Then she shakes off his hand and shouts loudly, "You're the one who even understand what you're doing to whom?" And so, Wendy and I confront Evan and his family with a certain truth. I am Rothy, 50 years old. I've raised Wendy alone since my husband died of an illness 18 years ago. At the time of his death, Wendy was just 7 years old. Not wanting to limit her future just because I was a single mother, I wished for financial stability, at least. Also, to fulfill my husband's dream. If only things could get on track. With that determination, I worked desperately, relying on grandparents and after-school programs. During that time, I made Wendy feel lonely many times. Why doesn't mom wait at home for me? Everyone else's mom says welcome back at home. One summer day, when Wendy was in the 2nd grade, she said to me with her lower lip bitten and tears in her eyes. It felt like a blow to the head. Too absorbed in work every day, I was losing sight of what was important. The most important thing was Wendy, yet I made her face look like this. "Sorry. I'm so sorry, Wendy." Since then, I gradually started to cut back on work where I could. Still, compared to families with both parents, I think we had less relaxed time together. Even when I got home early, there were times I had to work at home. "Sorry, Wendy." After finishing overtime and rushing home to manage dinner and baths, I'd hurry Wendy to bed and finally catch a breath, only to see her sleeping peacefully. Looking at her, I was tormented by an indescribable sense of guilt. She was still in elementary school, and I couldn't let her be as spoiled as she deserved. But I had to work. Without it, we couldn't live. If I fell ill, our household would be over. Every day was a struggle. But thanks to those efforts, by the time she graduated from middle school, my job stabilized, and we began to see financial ease. As a high schooler, Wendy had become quite independent. "Mom, aren't you working too much?" she would say, worried about my health. I felt a sense of reliability in her, who seemed older than her age, but also a bit of loneliness. From there, Wendy continued to grow without needing my worry, making her own way. Now, Wendy is turning 25 this year. She has fit in well at her job and adapted to living alone. Parents often think separation comes later than it does. At this rate, Wendy getting married might just happen in the blink of an eye. I sometimes imagine her in a wedding dress, and it brings tears to my eyes. Yet, I haven't heard any boyfriend stories from her. I thought marriage talks might still be a while away. Then, out of the blue, she suddenly contacted me. Initially, it was just casual chat, but suddenly, she went quiet and then shyly began. "Actually, there's someone I'm thinking of marrying." The news was so surprising, I almost screamed. Wendy's sudden marriage talk was honestly delightful. "Tell me, what's he like?" Truth be told, I wanted to grill her for details. But, suppressing my curiosity, I asked, Wendy seemed to ponder for a while, then after a pause, she answered. He's a colleague from work, competent, I guess. He confessed to me, and we've been dating for a bit. That's wonderful. As her parent, it might sound strange, but I believe Wendy has grown up to be a considerate, intelligent, and kind person. The good reputation I occasionally hear about Wendy at her workplace is all positive. Wendy is often requested by clients because she's polite, serious, and reliable. I was proud to know that she was sincerely committed to her work. There's a lot I can learn from her in terms of work. Is that so? Wendy's voice was lively as she talked about him. I wondered what kind of person Wendy's choice was. I wanted to know more. After all, this was the first boyfriend Wendy had ever told me about. I was very curious about him, but I didn't want to put any strange pressure on her, so I refrained from asking. Eventually, if anything progressed, Wendy would tell me. That's what I thought as I watched over her. Then, a few weeks after the initial contact, she reached out to me again. Sorry for the suddenness, but, I'd like you to meet him sometime. The invitation came much sooner than I had expected. I was a bit surprised, but also pleased. Oh, that's wonderful. Just let me know when. I'll make room in my schedule. I'm looking forward to it. But, despite my excitement over the phone, Wendy's reaction seemed complicated for some reason. When I asked what was wrong, she awkwardly answered, Just don't get your hopes up too much. I mean, I hope you won't be disappointed, Mom. It was an unexpected response. What? Oh, come on. I'm not that overprotective, and I don't have high expectations. Most importantly, I trust your choice. Yeah, thanks. The frustrating thing about phone calls is not being able to see the other person's face. I couldn't tell what kind of expression Wendy had right now. Why would my always positive daughter make such a negative preface about introducing her boyfriend to me? It's not like Wendy. Though it crossed my mind, she might just be nervous. I convinced myself of this and eagerly awaited the day I would meet Wendy and her boyfriend. And the day of the family meeting with him arrived. I'm nervous. Does my outfit look okay? Don't worry, it suits you well. Besides, I'm the one who's more nervous. We headed to a well-known restaurant in the area, smiling and looking at each other. It's a place often used for business discussions. Initially, we had planned to meet on a weekend for a leisurely chat. However, he was busy on weekends, so we ended up meeting after work. A little after we arrived, Wendy's boyfriend showed up. Nice to meet you, I'm Evan. Nice to meet you, I'm Wendy's mom. I'm glad to meet you. As I bowed, Evan smiled and greeted me back. With his tall figure and a suit that fit perfectly, he was a modern-looking man. His friendly demeanor was exactly that of a likable young salesman. Despite what Wendy had said earlier, I was taken aback by how pleasant he seemed. Such a nice person. What was she worried about? We've only been dating for a short time, but I'm considering marrying Wendy in the future. I'm really glad to meet you, Rothy, today. I'm glad you reached out to us too. It's reassuring to hear that he's not just playing around, but considering marriage. Serious, reliable, and interesting to talk to. Despite being such a nice guy, what was she worried about? He seemed like a very nice young man. With that thought, I was enjoying our conversation. However, as the alcohol flowed and the conversation got livelier, things started to turn odd. Evan's face turned red, and he was clearly in high spirits. You know, when I first heard she was a single mother, I honestly felt a bit reluctant. But I'm glad you're a good person. Eh? Oh, right. I almost dropped my glass. Even though alcohol was involved, it's not something you'd expect to be said at a first meeting. I think my face must have stiffened at that moment. "Hey, Evan." Wendy quickly placed her hand on his shoulder. But he shrugged off her hand with a shake. "Come on, I'm giving a compliment here." "Wendy, you're always so particular about these things." It wasn't she being particular, I thought to myself. She sighed and held her head in her hands. "Evan often makes careless remarks." "I'm sorry, Mom." "Oh, it's okay." Saying I wasn't bothered would be a lie. I've faced prejudice against single mothers many times before, but it never gets easier. It always pierces deeply into my heart. In the slightly tense atmosphere, only Evan seemed to enjoy his drink. It was the moment I first felt a sense of discomfort towards him. At first, I thought he was an impeccable young man. But as the alcohol settled, his mouth began to reveal various things. There were moments when I almost wanted to tilt my head in confusion. "Wendy, she's too good at her job. She's well regarded at work, but as a boyfriend, it feels like I'm being overshadowed," as he said, leaning on the table. It seemed he didn't notice my confusion at all. Perhaps he didn't care. "But she is working hard too." I followed up with a bit of irritation, but Evan waved his hand dismissively. "You don't get it. Wendy is working too hard. And, women should have a bit of vulnerability, right? It makes them cuter. Wasn't it like that back in your days, a long time ago?" A long time ago. It felt like being treated as an old person. Not incorrect, but not a pleasant feeling. Wendy tried to glare at him to stop, but Evan, finishing his glass of alcohol, seemed utterly satisfied. I wonder. But times have changed. It's different from our days, as you say. Well, your time was decades ago. But I still think women shouldn't stand out more than men. By the end, I could only respond with a wry smile, completely dumbfounded. After returning home, Wendy called to apologize. "I'm really sorry, Mom." "It's okay. I was happy to meet him." This was the truth. I was honestly happy to meet her partner. But I couldn't wholeheartedly support them. Thinking of that person spending his life with Wendy, I couldn't feel blessed. Sensing my heart, Wendy added an excuse for him. "Evan has been having a tough time at work lately. He's usually much calmer." "I see, he's tired. It can't be helped." "I'm sorry." If alcohol reveals one's true nature, what should I do? They said they were considering marriage. But is he really the right partner for her? Anxiety spread through my heart, but I couldn't say this to Wendy herself. It lacked delicacy, but there wasn't enough to criticize. "I guess all we can do is watch a little longer," I murmured to myself, sighing. I thought to observe for a while longer. But a few weeks after that family meeting, Wendy brought surprising news. "Actually, Evan proposed to me yesterday. He wants you to come with me to his family's place next time." "Are you saying you're going to marry him?" I almost blurted out my concern for Evan, but chose my words carefully. You're saying you want to marry him?" If Wendy herself wishes it, it can't be helped. But as a parent, could I send off my daughter with these doubts? Asking hesitantly, after a few seconds, Wendy said in a small voice, "Actually, Mom, there's been something on my mind recently that I couldn't tell you." "What?" Hearing a certain fact from her, I decided to act immediately. For my precious daughter. There's no time for hesitation. And a few days later, Wei visited Evan's family home. "I'm glad you could come." Evan came to pick us up on foot from the nearest station to his family's home. Wendy, Evan, and I walked to his home. Our parents are so eager about the marriage, waiting for it to happen soon. My mom, even before meeting Wendy, thought of her like a real daughter. Wendy mentioned that marriage was still on hold, but Evan and his parents seemed all in. I'm looking forward to meeting them. Imagining the upcoming events, I smiled vacantly. After about a 10-minute walk, we arrived at his family home. As he said, his parents greeted us with smiles. Oh, she's quite small and thin, but such a cute young lady. You must be Wendy. Nice to meet you. Wendy responded calmly with a smile, but I was shocked. To comment on Wendy's appearance in front of me, her parent, at the first meeting. Silently staring, Evan's mother, Risa, seemed to notice me and smiled in my direction. So, you're Wendy's mother, right? Yes. As Wendy and I awkwardly interacted, Evan's father, Mike, interjected. Well, if you eat lots of delicious food here, you'll get a more robust physique. Anyway, come on Wendy, let's go inside. Hurry. Ah, yes. Excuse us. Mike works at the same company as Wendy and Evan, but in a different department, so it seems today is the first time they've met face to face. To comment on someone's appearance at the first meeting, especially as a couple, what kind of people are they? I was taken aback, and Evan said to me, What's wrong? Come on, Rothy, don't be shy. Our house is quite nice for this area, but you don't have to hold back. Did he think I was overwhelmed? No, I was just surprised by his odd parents. I never imagined being commented on my daughter's appearance at a first meeting. Right, let's go in. Holding back my bubbling feelings, I stepped into the room. True to their boasting, the house was spacious and beautiful. This is quite different from your childhood home, so it might take some time to get comfortable, but you'll be fine. You'll get used to it. Risa glanced at me and then hugged her shoulder. Are they implying we live in a shabby house because we're a mother-daughter household? Maintaining such a large house is tough, but Wendy, you'll manage, right? You've always done household chores, haven't you? That's normal for a single-mother family, right? Poor thing. I wanted to retort, but I held back. Wendy started to say something, but before she could, Risa pushed her back towards the living room, speeding up their pace. You must be hungry, right? Sit down. The living room table was laden with pizzas. We ordered from a famous local shop because Wendy was coming. It's a special day, after all. Indeed, the pizzas looked expensive. Guided to our seats, Wendy and I noticed something amiss. What's this? Pointing at what was placed before me, Evan's family all laughed the same way. In the world, there are all sorts of people, you know? You've heard it, right? Living in different worlds. Today, we thought Wendy and you should experience that. Risa exclaimed joyfully. Next to her, Mike and Evan, sitting by Wendy, watched the scene with amusement. Their intentions were too clear, and I couldn't help but laugh. I see. So, famous pizzas in front of everyone, and instant noodles in front of me. At my words, Evan clapped. Exactly. You're quick to catch on. Instant noodles represent Wendy and Rothy's past, and the famous pizzas represent our family and Wendy's future with us. It's simple, right? Wendy sat silently, head bowed. I remained silent too, glaring at Evan's family. Thinking they had won, Risa said brashly. Let's eat together as a new family. Evan's family began eating the delicious-looking pizza as if to show off to me. Noticing my stiffness, they raised their voices in an exaggerated tone. Your portion just had water added, so it'll be ready in about 3 minutes. You're used to it, right? Sorry, but we'll start without you. Come on, Wendy, eat up. With that, Risa peered into Wendy's face. At that moment, Wendy slowly stood up. Risa looked at her curiously. "Oh, Wendy, what's wrong?" "Don't worry, eat up. From now on, instead of her, we'll be your family." Wendy looked at Risa coldly, ignoring her words, and briskly walked to my side, saying to me in a clear voice, "Let's go home." I nodded in agreement. "Sure." As we headed for the entrance, an agitated Evan blocked our path. "Wendy, what are you doing?" "Thinking of going home. To avoid wasting any more time." "What? Do you even realize what you're saying?" Evan, visibly irritated, raised his voice and grabbed her arm. She shook off his hand and shouted loudly, "You're the one who don't understand what you're doing." Evan looked momentarily surprised, then scoffed. "Are you going to complain again about being disrespected? Can't help it, can you? This is like a ritual for your sake." "What?" When Wendy glared at him, Evan shrugged his shoulders resignedly. "You always brag about your mom, but after all, she's just a poor single mother, right? Moreover, a widow who hasn't been able to remarry even after decades. We're inviting you from that pitiful world to our wealthy one, and you're still unsatisfied?" A widow who hasn't been able to remarry. Some people might see it that way. Indeed, being a single mother, I've often been shunned and looked down upon. But actually, there have been people who have shown interest in me. However, since my husband passed away, Wendy has always been my top priority. There are many benefits to remarriage, but also not a few disadvantages. After much thought, I had decided not to remarry until she did. And Wendy herself knew that. Wendy, still staring at Evan, let out a big sigh. "I thought you were capable at work, but it turns out you're this useless in private." "What did you just say?" Evan, his face turning red with anger, was met with a questioning look from Wendy. "You separate work and private life? But you should think carefully from now on. It's hard to tell where work and private life connect." "Are you threatening me? What connection could possibly exist between an old woman like her and my job?" Wendy looked at me and nodded. It seemed there was no need for silence anymore. I turned to Evan, cleared my throat once, and smiled. "Actually, even though we've just met, your company and our company have a deep connection." "My company?" Evan's face, which had been red until a moment ago, suddenly turned pale. "What do you mean? The company?" "Wendy is cautious, so she hadn't told you. Actually, your company is a subsidiary of ours." "Our company," I say, but in reality, it was something my late husband founded. Interested in the apparel industry, he had slowly planned and started the business since his student days. The company was doing fairly well, but when my husband passed away mid-dream, I took over. I don't have my husband's sense for business. At first, it was a real struggle. But I desperately wanted to continue what he left behind. I thought if the company stabilized, we could be financially secure. It was tough managing work while raising young Wendy, but with help from those around us, we eventually got on track. Recently, the business has been booming. "Don't lie. Wendy never said anything about that." Evan looked at her in a panic, but she didn't meet his eyes and countered. "I don't like being treated specially because of it. Only the CEO, Christopher, knows about this in our company." "What? The CEO knows about you?" Wendy nodded, then gave me a signal. "By the way, Christopher has been a fan of Mom for a long time. I was the reason he never made a move." "Hey! Don't say unnecessary things." Actually, Christopher had confessed to me several times after my husband passed away. I can't consider it until Wendy is grown up. I had declined, thinking it would make personal life awkward, but we've maintained a good relationship as friends since he acts normally around me. Evan's mouth flapped open and shut, his eyes darting around. Your mom, the parent company's CEO. And CEO is a fan of you, Rothy? Yes. Now that you and Wendy won't be getting married, can you stop calling me Rothy? Evan was completely confused. But there was more to be addressed. I almost left due to their treatment, but I had something else to ask him. I had come today specifically for this reason. Evan, you seem to have a good reputation at work, but apparently, you've been doing whatever you want with it. Ah. Evan froze, his face turning pale. Clearly, he knew what I was talking about. His eyes flickered uncertainly. I heard you've been approaching various dispatch workers. Surely, many would be happy to accept your advances. How do you know that? Evan's eyes widened. He glanced at his parents for a moment, but then shook his head at me. It's a misunderstanding. I did approach them. But that was to improve the atmosphere at work. His flustered demeanor was suspicious. How could he lie so blatantly? If he was inviting people like this, it's no wonder anyone would be suspicious of this man. But I was almost deceived by him at our first meeting. If dispatch workers fell for his masked state, it's understandable. He's still frantically making excuses. You made excuses to Wendy in the same way, didn't you? Wendy, being honest and serious, trusted him. However, feeling anxious again about the marriage, she consulted me at that time. After hearing everything from Wendy, I became very anxious. So, I hired a detective to investigate you after your proposal. That's an invasion of privacy. Evan was frantic. This reaction alone should have been telling, but the results were as expected. He had physical relationships with several girls. Some were even hinted at contract extensions by you, despite you having no authority to promise that. It's sad they were all deceived. Evan, looking down and trembling, suddenly raised his head and yelled. So what? That just motivates them more at work. I'm not doing anything wrong. In fact, I'm helping the company. To think he would deny and justify himself, I was appalled. How many dispatch workers has this man manipulated? Dispatch workers are, in a way, employees entrusted to the company by their agencies. You seem to look down on them, but they are not people who deserve such treatment. What? That's just a pretty speech. Dispatch workers are just a bunch of people who couldn't become full-time employees, right? In other words, a collection of lower-quality people. We, the full-time employees, are obviously superior. This person is beyond redemption. Even Evan's parents, who were nodding in agreement behind him, were incomprehensible to me. Perhaps he received such education from a young age. Living in different worlds and looking down on others to bask in their sense of superiority. It would be a waste of time to say anything to such people. It seems it will take time for you to understand. But maybe you'll grasp it quickly if you find yourself in their position? What? Well, according to your standards, you'll be below dispatch workers, right? As you said, the lowest tier? Evan looked at me with desperate eyes, shaking his head. What do you mean? Do you think the company will continue to employ someone who has been so involved with dispatch workers? You're fired. CEO is also furious. That can't be. Wait. That's a lie, right? Impossible. Evan tried to grab my arm, but Wendy pushed his hand away. Don't touch my mom with your filthy hands. We live in different worlds. It's good. We're not in the same lowest world as you. No, wait, Wendy. Evan, tearful and begging, received no glance from her. I thought you were a wonderful person at first. I was deceived by that, but now I feel nothing. Let's go, Mom. As Wendy pulled my hand, Evan's parents stepped in to stop us. Wait, Wendy. He will change from now on. That's right. He might have done something stupid, but he's a promising guy for the future. It's a waste to give up on him now! You'll regret it later! The parents were in a panic. No wonder. Evan and his father were the main income earners for the family. With Evan being fired, the income for Evan's family would drastically decrease. The days of boasting about famous pizzas would be over. Mike, in particular, had another worry. I stood in front of the parents and told Mike, "Did you think it wouldn't come out? What are you talking about? Evan's not the only one doing foolish things, right? A foolish family, indeed." Mike was sweating on his forehead. Please, don't let the CEO know about me. It's all already known. Good luck job hunting as a family. But, in this industry, rumors spread quickly, so re-employment might be difficult. Is there a gene for bowing? Evan and his father knelt down together, resembling each other even in their posture. As I left the room and looked back, their figures were strikingly similar from a distance. Later, Evan and his father were both fired together. Not just because of the issue with dispatch workers, but various small deceits had also come to light. Despite being well paid, both became unemployed at once, plunging their standard of living to rock bottom. They had to sell their house and now live in an old apartment, the three of them together. It'll be a long while before they can afford pizza again. Incidentally, both members of the Evan family were regarded as capable workers on the surface, so their dismissal caused quite a stir within the company. For me, the future of Evan and his family holds no interest. My primary concern was whether Wendy was taking the shock too hard. That was the only thing on my mind. However, it seems that worry was unnecessary. I need to gain more experience. It was my lack of experience that got me deceived by someone like that. Saying so, she has been actively going out for meals with colleagues and friends introduced by others, seemingly to meet new people. For my daughter, her positive and reliable outlook is admirable. This is the Wendy I know. As for me, following this incident, it's time for you to let go. She told me. It might sound odd coming from me, especially after what just happened, but if there's someone you want to marry, I truly want you to do so. I'm already 25, so there's no need for any hesitation or worry on my part. Somehow, Wendy seems to have taken to heart Evan's derogatory comments about me being a widow who couldn't remarry. While I don't necessarily have a desire to marry, the thought of spending the rest of my life with someone does appeal to me. Pushed by her support, the next time he invites me out for a meal, maybe I won't make up an excuse and will accept instead. After decades of knowing him, perhaps with him, I could spend a happy and peaceful life in my later years. That's what I've come to think. You're in your mid-30s and you're still single? That's pretty sad. My husband is both handsome and a genius. Madison declares this with a sneer in the middle of the park, looking down on me with a smirk that seems to scream she's on the winning side. The crowd around us starts to murmur. Everyone looks at me with pity in their eyes. That must have been exactly what Madison wanted when she raised her voice. I've been subjected to Madison's cruelty before. I've managed to ignore it until now, but I can't take it anymore. I want to make her experience hell. The same, no, even worse hell than what I've been through. My name is Stella. A 36-year-old working mother. I'm a nurse, and despite the challenges, I find fulfillment in a job that allows me to help others. Welcome home, Stella. I'm back. You're home early today. The meeting I had planned got rescheduled to tomorrow, so I ended up having some free time. Waiting for you at home like this is quite nice. My husband, Stephen, is a calm and kind-hearted man. Like me, he's busy with work, but he always makes time for the family, and even after 13 years of marriage, I can feel his deep love for me. Mom, you're home. That's my son, Mark. He just started middle school this year and is 12 years old. He's still my adorable son, though he's starting to act a bit more grown up. I'm back. Oh, what's that wonderful smell? Today's my turn to cook dinner. It'll be ready soon. Mark has grown up to be a kind child, just like his dad. I could have never imagined my life to be like this 13 years ago. I'm always grateful to Stephen and Mark. One day, I found myself alone in a jewelry shop in Chinatown. I was there to get our wedding rings cleaned since they'd started to tarnish. I decided to go for the full restoration service, and they told me it would take about 2 to 3 weeks for the rings to be ready. After leaving my ring with them, I headed to the apparel shop next door. Stephen, knowing I don't often splurge on myself, had given me some money and said, "Buy yourself some clothes you like." While I was happily choosing clothes, someone called out to me. "Hey, aren't you Stella?" "Huh?" I turned around to see a short woman standing there. Her large, cat-like eyes and plump lips. Anyone would have called her cute at first glance, and her exaggerated head tilt was designed to charm. But that's all in the past now. As she's entered her late 30s, those gestures just seemed embarrassing. "It's been a while. Remember me? As if you could forget, right? After all that happened. But, seriously, Stella, still single? I noticed you're not wearing a ring." The woman basking in her own chatter is Madison. My friend, or rather, my former friend. Madison and I met in high school. I was a member of the volunteer club. It was a club that visited preschools to read picture books and relearned sign language to communicate with the hearing impaired. I've always found joy and purpose in making people smile and doing something beneficial for others. And Madison was also a member of this club. Why did you join the volunteer club, Madison? Just because. It seemed fun. Like sign language and Braille. Madison, with her cute looks and a charm akin to a small animal, was popular among the boys. Wow, Stella, you've already learned that much sign language. You're really talented. Really? Thank you. Madison often complimented me, which meant a lot since I didn't have much confidence in myself. She also gave me advice on love. Hey, I'm going to start dating Brian. It's all thanks to you, Madison. Really? Congratulations. Perhaps because of her popularity and continuous advice, I got a boyfriend for the first time in my life. His name was Brian. A senior in the top high school in the county, aiming for medical school, a true elite. Brian and I met at a cram school. We happened to be going the same way home, and after talking a few times, there was a mutual attraction, though he hadn't made a move. After consulting with Madison, she said, "You should be the one to go for it." So, I asked him out and we finally became a couple. Madison, thank you so much. No problem, we're best friends, right? We'll always be together. Our friendship came to an end when Madison stole my fiancé. After graduating high school, I went to nursing school and worked as a nurse at a hospital. Brian, having passed his medical licensing exams, proposed to me, and we got engaged. I was on top of the world. Then, I received a phone call. It was from Madison. After high school, Madison went to a distant university, got a job, and didn't return to our hometown. We only met once or twice a year. Madison mentioned she would be coming back home soon, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to introduce her to Brian, so the three of us planned to meet. On the day the three of us met, Madison's face lit up the moment she saw Brian. "Brian, you're so handsome. And such great taste in clothes, and plus you're a doctor too? Totally my dream guy." "Yes, but I still have a lot to learn. Smart and high-earning." "Guess you're not short on cash, Stella. Share some with me, will you?" "What do you mean share?" I found myself grateful for Madison's presence in my life, the only one with whom I could exchange such jokes. A month had passed by. Late at night, I got a call from Madison. "Sorry, Stella." "For what?" Madison chuckled as if she was holding back a big secret. "I only meant to take a little bit from you." But he was surprisingly easy to win over. So, I ended up taking everything, not just a little. It seems that during our meeting, Madison had secretly exchanged contact details with Brian. They met behind my back several times and eventually became romantically involved. Why? Why would you do that? We were. It's all a lie, obviously. What? You know, it was all calculated. I joined the volunteer club because I thought it would be full of nice, naive people, and yes, I hit the jackpot. There were so many people I could use. People who are too kind, can't judge others well, and share everything once they trust someone. Like you, Stella. Thanks to that, I knew everything about Brian, his likes, dislikes, personality, and even his taste in women. From there, it was an easy win for me. I'm way cuter than you, after all. You're lying, right? Madison? I never expected you to bring along such an impressive guy. Thanks, Stella. The call ended. Later, Brian officially called off our engagement, and the next year, he married Madison. Madison had a baby. That much was detailed in a letter she sent, making sure I knew. I moved far away, rented a house, and changed jobs to avoid any interaction with them. I hadn't met either of them since then. Brian's made quite the name for himself. He's working at a big hospital now, and we've moved. All thanks to you, Stella. Realizing that was her way of saying thanks for giving me Brian, I bit my lip. I don't dwell on the past. I put the clothes back and left the store. After returning home, I acted as if nothing had happened in front of my family and went to my bedroom, claiming I was tired. I never thought I'd run into Madison again. I was considering taking a nap until dinner to forget everything when my phone's notification sound went off. A friend request? It was from a social media account I had registered long ago and hadn't been using. Opening the app, I was surprised. A friend request from Madison. Why? Feeling there must be some intention behind it, I checked her profile and found a post from 10 minutes ago. Met Stella today. Really nostalgic. She's as plain as ever. But still my dear friend. Here's a photo of Stella picking out clothes. The photo showed me choosing clothes alone. She must have taken it before approaching me. The post had many comments. Wow, Stella really has no taste. Hasn't changed a bit since high school. So funny. Madison's so kind to help her choose. Unable to bear it any longer, I closed my phone. She must have sent the friend request just to show me this. mocking me, exposing me in a public space. This was too cruel. How much more did she need to belittle me to be satisfied? A firm resolve for revenge began to stir within me. Today, I found myself back in Chinatown. A famous large department store had apparently opened nearby, and today, there was an opening sale with a 10% discount at all stores. Thanks to the sale, the department store was bustling with activity. After finishing my shopping, I was waiting on a bench in the plaza. That's when I heard a familiar voice. "Hey, is that you, Stella? What's this? Did the poor thing get lured in by the sale?" "Madison." It was the opening day of the famous large department store. I had been wary, hoping not to run into Madison, yet here she was. "I was just here waiting for my family." "Never thought I'd run into you, Stella." "That's right. I'm waiting for someone too." "Oh, your family? But you're single, aren't you? Got dumped by someone, right?" "Hey, Brian." Brian was next to Madison, turning his face away from me, looking uncomfortable. "Mom, is this the lady Dad dumped?" She looks so plain and uncool. A girl who looked like she was in middle school laughed at me. Madison put her hand on the girl's shoulder, beaming proudly. "This is Mia, my pride and joy. She's smart like Brian and goes to a prestigious middle school. She's super cute, right? She's an influencer with 10,000 followers on social media. We're like the successful mother-daughter duo." They both let out a vulgar laugh just as my son approached. "Mom?" Mark runs over to me. Seeing Madison's puzzled look, I said to her, "Let me introduce you. This is my son, Mark." Madison was taken aback. "Huh? You have a kid? Well, he's got a plain face just like you." Then Mia tugged at Madison's arm. "Wait, Mom, this is Mark. The super popular YouTuber with 500K subscribers. He's really smart and makes puzzle and quiz videos with his friends. And he's the current heartthrob. He looks even more handsome in person." "Wait, what? I'm Mia, an influencer. You know me, right? Can we exchange contacts?" Mia's eyes glistened as she gazed up at Mark, staring intently. Just like Madison used to. "Mia? Never heard of you. Plus, I heard from a distance how you were mocking my mom. I don't like people who insult others' families. But, hey, why didn't you tell me, Mom? You got me dumped. It's your fault." "Mia, I'm a big fan of his. I looked forward to his videos every day, solved puzzles, and always sent comments, hoping to meet him someday. Why is this happening to me? I hate you, Mom." "Mia, wait." "Don't touch me." Mia shook off Madison's hand and ran away crying. Madison, visibly shaken, turned to me with a furious look. "So what if your son is whatever he says he is? Brian works at the top university hospital in this area. I taught him everything so he could advance his career. Even how to cover up little medical errors. I mean mistakes, you know." "Hey, Madison, don't talk about that. You must be some miserable single mother, right? Not wearing a ring. Being single at 36, what a late bloomer. My husband is handsome and a genius," Madison said with a sarcastic smile. Then Mark exclaimed, "Oh, Dad." "Hey, Mark." Stella. Stephen, having finished shopping, approached us. I smiled sweetly at Madison. "Let me introduce my husband as well. This is Stephen, a doctor at a nearby hospital. You know him, don't you, Madison? Seeing Stephen, Madison looked like she was about to lose her mind. Stephen? The genius doctor who became the deputy director of the university hospital at 38? I nodded in response. Stephen and I met 13 years ago. After Madison stole Brian from me, I moved away to avoid them and started a new job at a different hospital. That's where I met Stephen. Back then, Stephen was a rookie doctor. He appreciated my diligent work ethic and the way I interacted with patients, deeply empathizing with my desire to help others, a sentiment I've held since my time in the volunteer club. We were naturally drawn to each other and eventually got married. And that's how Mark came into our lives. Just how did you manage to marry someone so impressive, Stella? Did you use some dirty trick? Stop it, Madison. What's it with you, Brian? Don't interfere. I said stop it. Brian slapped Madison with great force. She fell, holding her reddened cheek, trembling. What is wrong with you? Brian glared at Madison. This man is my boss. Haven't I told you before? I work at the same university hospital as Dr. Stephen. You weren't listening because you were too obsessed with social media. Brian deeply apologized to Stephen and me. I'm terribly sorry for my wife's insult. Madison, I'm truly sorry. Stephen looked down at Brian and growled. You were talking about medical errors earlier, weren't you? That was just my wife's nonsense. I recall there was a medical error at the hospital you used to work at. A nurse was accused, and she has always claimed her innocence. Yes, I think I'll have the hospital look into it again. My husband and my son both have good ears. I chuckled behind Stephen. But Brian collapsed, as if his soul had been drained. Madison was frozen, her eyes wide. I slowly began to speak. Madison, you thought I was single because I wasn't wearing a ring, but actually, it's currently being serviced. I should have told you. I'm sorry. Stella, you. Madison was shaking, her face flushed with anger. Then Stephen tapped my shoulder. Let's go home, Stella. We've finished shopping, and besides, today is our anniversary. That's right. Didn't you book a restaurant? I'm starving, let's hurry. Yes, let's. We left the plaza together, leaving Madison behind. Her voice of frustration echoed behind us. What the? No. I won't accept this. I left the department store elegantly, hand in hand with my husband and son, with her voice as our background music. The dinner at the restaurant was wonderful. Celebrating our anniversary with my family, I couldn't help but feel incredibly fortunate. Yet, a bit of unease lingered. I checked my social media. Yes, it's about Madison. She might well concoct a story from today's events to mock me. I checked Madison's page. Today was the best day. Was shopping at the department store and met that genius middle schooler, Mark. My daughter even got his autograph. I'm so lucky. Snapped a photo of Mark. There was a photo of Mark from behind. Likely, she took it as we were leaving the department store. I was dumbfounded by Madison's persistence to use whatever she could. I commented on Madison's post. Delete that photo right now. And stop lying about getting an autograph. Then, a new post appeared. Some people are getting jealous. It's terrible to accuse me of lying when I'm not. The comments were filled with support for Madison. It was the usual scenario. There was no other choice. I decided to take a final measure. Later, I received a notification on social media. It was a friend request notification. The name was Madison too. An apology, perhaps? Though I had no expectations, I accepted Madison's friend request. Immediately, a message arrived. Stella, what have you done? My account got deleted because of you. What are you going to do about it? What am I going to do? I've told you repeatedly to delete it, and you wouldn't listen. I simply told Mark the truth. I informed Mark about Madison's post. We couldn't let the unauthorized photo and lies go unchecked, especially since it was harmful to Mark. Mark took it seriously and posted a video warning. Somebody's been posting my photos on social media, which were taken without permission. I didn't sign anything. Despite requests from me and through my parents for deletion, all were ignored. Taking photos without consent is a crime. Please stop doing this. Mark's fans quickly identified Madison's post, and after many reported it, her account was suspended. The friend request now was from Madison's new account. The 2 in the name likely meant it was her second account. She must have registered again with a new email, but her fixation towards social media was astonishing. How much effort do you think I've put into my posts? Thinking of the text, selecting the photos. Then why not put that effort into your new account? Post the truth and use proper photos, and you won't have your account suspended again. Shut up. Don't tell me what to do. And don't message me again. She was the one who reached out to me in the first place. I sighed and put down my phone. Later on, Madison began posting on her new account. Madison posted about her glowing daily life, fun girls' nights out, and parties. The friends appearing in photos with Madison were always the same group, including some from the volunteer club. Then, I received another friend request. I was curious but recognized the name upon seeing it. It was Olivia from the volunteer club, a frequent presence in Madison's posts. I hadn't talked to her much, but I remembered her face and name. Long time no see, Stella. It's been a while. How have you been? Yes, well, actually, I wanted to talk to you about something concerning Madison. Do you have the time? Of course. What's up? Madison always posts these flashy pictures on social media, surrounded by lots of friends. But it's all a lie. Everyone's being blackmailed into participating. Madison would dine out, claiming she's introducing them to good places, and then make everyone pay for her share. I was speechless. Finally, understanding the reason why members of the volunteer club appeared in Madison's photos. Is that true? Yes. Remember when Madison was criticized for taking unauthorized photos? Right after that, she contacted me. I've been complying, but I'm lost about what to do next. That's why I reached out to you, Stella. I saw you commented on that controversial post, so I thought you might support me. I thought for a moment. You mentioned being blackmailed. What kind of leverage does she have? She claimed to have seen me verbally abusing other members back when we were in the volunteer club, even threatening to expose this to my family. But I have no recollection of such actions. She insists she has evidence, and it seems others are in a similar situation. I felt something was off about Madison's claims. I suggested to Olivia. Sounds like Madison's lying, as usual. She targets kind or vulnerable people. Why not subtly ask around? A week later, one by one, the friends started disappearing from Madison's posts. According to Olivia, when asked for details or to show proof regarding everyone's weaknesses, Madison couldn't provide any and brushed off the request. Seeing her reaction, friends, or rather, those who had been threatened by Madison, became convinced that the so-called weaknesses Madison mentioned didn't exist. The glamorous daily life previously depicted in Madison's posts disappeared, replaced by solitary visits to cafes and boasts about her latest brand purchases. The likes and comments on her posts dramatically decreased. It was likely all a setup from the start. While checking my phone after work, I received a message. "I'll never forgive you." I wondered if Madison found out I had given advice. Or was it just her assumption? Either way, I didn't want to be involved anymore, so I didn't reply. A few days later, as I was unlocking my door after returning from work, someone grabbed my shoulder from behind. Turning around, I saw it was Madison. "Madison? Why are you here?" I hired a detective. "I know your husband is off today and has been out with your son since this morning." Madison pushed her way into my house and began to yell as she entered. "Brian is being interrogated by the police. And because of Mark's photo, even Mia has been avoiding me, and all my friends are gone. I'll end up all alone. You have to take responsibility." Responsibility? This is all your fault, isn't it? Brian going to the police is because you instructed him to cover up his mistakes, right? And Mia avoiding you is because of the wrong you did. The same with social media. Threatening people to pretend to be your friends. You're the cause of all this. I responded calmly. Perhaps the incident at the department store had cleared my heart, healing past wounds. I won't run away. I won't lose anymore. Wait a minute. When you got a boyfriend in high school, it was all thanks to me. Without my advice, you would have been ignored for life. Now, return the favor. Give back everything you took from me. You're the one who took everything, Madison. You betrayed me. There's no favor to return. If there's any grudge, it's already been paid back. You should experience the hell I was pushed into." As I refused, Madison began to cry, crouching down. "You're so cruel. Please, we're best friends, right? Tell your husband that Brian is innocent. Make Mark tell Mia he doesn't hate him. Please, I beg you." Black tears streamed down Madison's cheeks, likely the result of her heavy eyeshadow and mascara dissolving in her tears. Madison's face was a mess. She continued to cry, covering her face with her hands as if she were playing the victim. During this, I quietly went to the bathroom and made a phone call to a certain place. After a while, the doorbell rang, and the door was opened from the outside. "What? What's this?" Madison shivered. "We received a report about this house." Yes, she forced her way in here. It was the police officer I had called. The officer knelt down to Madison's level. "You're suspected of trespassing. We've also received several complaints about noise from the neighbors, so you'll need to come with us to the station." The officers handcuffed Madison and led her to the police car. Of course, she resisted. "No, I'm innocent. Somebody, anybody." Madison was pushed into the police car and taken to the station. Stephen and Mark were surprised by the event, but were more amazed that I had handled Madison calmly. They were relieved I was safe and hugged me, saying, "We're so glad." That night, Stephen and I were in the bedroom. "Stella, I have some good news." "Good news?" "Madison's husband, well, my subordinate, seems to be under investigation for medical malpractice. Rumor has it he's almost certainly guilty." "Is that so?" Madison had been malicious since high school, probably desperate to elevate Brian for her own gain and status. Eventually, Brian was arrested by the police. The scandal of a doctor blaming a nurse for his mistake was sensationalized in the media, exposing their wrongdoing. Madison was also arrested for instructing Brian to cover up the mistake. Both ended up in prison together. The victim of the medical malpractice is preparing to sue, and it seems both Brian and Madison's lives are effectively over. That goes the same for their daughter Mia. Stella, isn't this dress nice? I like it. It looks like it would suit Mom. Really? Let me see. We were at an apparel shop, the three of us. The last time I came here alone, Madison interrupted me, and I ended up going home without buying anything. So, we decided to come back together. I tried on the dress that Stephen and Mark recommended. Isn't it a bit plain? Not at all. It suits you. Exactly, being plain doesn't mean it's bad. If it suits you, then it's all good. I was happy to hear their words. Yes, you both are right. I want to continue spending peaceful days with my family of 3. I'll give you a kid with developmental disabilities. Scarlett, my son's arrogant wife, said to me. A strong hatred for her stirring up inside me. She doesn't love her own children. She only sees them as tools for making money. My anger towards her reached its peak, and I decided to take my grandchild away from her. Then I'll raise her. I set the condition that she would never be involved with her child again, and arranged for an adoption. 10 years later, Scarlett, triggered by a certain event, came to regret her choices. My name is Grace. I work as a proofreader. A proofreader is someone who checks for errors in manuscripts and layout prints at publishing companies, like for books and magazines. My husband, Henry, is a film director. He's made a name for himself as a capable director, having worked on a wide range of projects from animations to suspense and horror films. We, a creative couple, had one son. He grew up splendidly, found a wonderful wife, and got married. They were blessed with children. But soon after the marriage, our son tragically died in an accident. Losing our only son, Henry and I were engulfed in sorrow. But perhaps it was even harder for Scarlett, our son's wife. At the young age of 33, she became a widow and raised her 2 daughters by herself. Moreover, the girls were twins, and the younger one, Mia, showed signs of developmental disabilities. Her sister is Emma. At the time, Mia's condition was diagnosed as mild, but as she grew, her symptoms became more evident, and now she attends a special education class at the same elementary school as Emma. Raising a child with disabilities is no ordinary task. Especially for Scarlett, who lost her husband so early, her days must be incredibly hard. Of course, my husband and I try to support her in every way we can. She has a job, so during times like evenings when she can't take care of the kids, we take them in. Still, the hardships she's faced since our son's death are unimaginable. I am grateful to her. She truly cared for her children. Until she became obsessed with a certain man. Her personality changed after meeting this man. Grace, I'm taking Emma to her piano class, so I'll drop Mia off at your place. I should be there in about 5 minutes. That was a sudden, unexpected call. Previously, Scarlett used to check my schedule and show consideration, but lately, it's always been abrupt. She might know her piano class schedule in advance, yet she calls out of the blue, wanting to drop off Mia without any prior discussion. It's not just inconvenient for me, but for Henry as well, who has his own work. Scarlett, I think it's admirable how much you care for Emma. But if you're going to ask us to take Mia in suddenly every time, we have our own schedules too. Wait, aren't you off today, Grace? I saw on the calendar that you have every Tuesday off this month. Scarlett knew everything about our work and home schedule, as she often brought the kids over. It felt invasive, like being monitored. There are things we can only do on our days off. Please, don't just leave the kids with us without discussing it first. It's not that we don't want to take them. It's just a bit troublesome without any prior notice. I understand. I'll be more careful from now on. There was a brief pause, and Scarlett's reply sounded listless. Accompanying her perfunctory response was a faint clicking of her tongue. Before I could respond, she abruptly ended the call. Soon after, I heard Scarlett's car parking outside. Suppressing my exasperation, I got up from my chair to head to the door. Then, I overheard an unbelievable remark from the entrance. "Mia, just go on to Grandma's by yourself." From the entrance, I heard Scarlett's condescending voice speaking to Mia, leaving me shocked and speechless. Moreover, I only heard the sound of the door opening once. Meaning, Scarlett didn't even get out of the car, she just told Mia something and then drove off again. Surprised by this unbelievable situation, I hurried to the entrance and found Mia left there alone. "Mia, where's your mom? Where did she go?" Mia, not understanding the situation, looked at me with a puzzled expression. I placed my hands on Mia's shoulders, asking her what happened, but she just kept staring at me, puzzled, not attempting to answer my question. "Grandma. Good evening." Mia is in elementary school, but she's delayed in speech, only able to communicate in two-word sentences. She can't answer complicated questions, and when bombarded with them, she tends to get stuck. At this moment, not understanding my question, Mia, contrary to my anxious mood, just smiled sweetly and continued to look at me. "Mia, where did your mom go? Shopping? Piano class? Which one?" When speaking to her, I know I shouldn't get emotional. If I convey words in haste, she also gets affected and may panic. I took a deep breath to calm myself and, showing my fists alternately with my hands, I tried to make it easier for Mia to choose an answer. Thanks to that, she seemed to understand the question and pointed to the right fist I held out secondly, uttering surprising words. "Piano. Went with Emma and a man." A man. Hearing this intriguing word, I impulsively asked her more questions. "Is he Mom's friend? Emma's friend?" "No. Mom's favorite person." Seeing her talk happily made my heart ache. Scarlett left a daughter behind to go to Emma's piano class with a new man. But why leave only Mia? The answer would soon become clear. That night, after piano class was over and it was getting time for Scarlett to pick Mia up, she didn't show up at our house. Fortunately, the next day was Saturday, so having Mia stay over wasn't a problem, but it was still incredibly rude. Scarlett left her with us without any notice. What's happening to her? I kept repeating these complaints in my mind while waiting with Mia for Scarlett to pick her up. Little did I know then, Scarlett's life was spiraling out of control. "Hello, Grace? Sorry, but could you let Mia stay over tonight? Emma has come down with a fever. I don't want Mia to catch it, so could you look after her?" It was past 9 p.m. I had finished giving Mia a shower and dinner, and was just waiting for Scarlett to pick her up when she called. Scarlett's voice on the phone didn't sound hurried, just apologetically casual. If I hadn't known the situation from Mia, I might not have doubted her words. But, having heard Mia's earlier story, I couldn't easily believe Scarlett. "All right. We'll take care of her tonight." Realizing my reluctance, Henry, who was playing with Mia, turned to me and said so with a stern expression. I relayed to Scarlett that we would take care of Mia just for tonight. "I understand the situation. But you knew about this sooner, right? How many hours has it been since piano class ended?" "Sorry. I was just about to pick her up when she started looking unwell. I'll be more careful next time." Her nonchalant reply only increased my anger. "From now on, please make sure to contact us in advance. If not, we might find it difficult to take her in the future." "Yes. Thank you so much." She responded sweetly and ended the call unilaterally. Dumbfounded and speechless, I returned to Mia and Henry, and that's when things got tough. "Mia, how about spending today with Grandpa and Grandma? Your mom can't pick you up because she's taking care of Emma who's sick." Maybe the way I said it was not good. Mia, having already decided in her mind that she was going home, got upset when her routine was disrupted. Mia, in a state of panic, began to wander restlessly around, crying and repeating that she wanted to go home. She curled up on the spot, trying to calm herself down, but it seemed she couldn't switch off her emotions. Sitting down, then standing up, repeating this over and over, she eventually collapsed onto a nearby sofa and started to cry intensely. "I'm sorry, it's my fault. It's okay. Let's just be there for Mia right now." We've encountered situations like this several times before. When she was younger, her tantrums were much worse, becoming so violent that she was uncontrollable. She would hit herself against walls or slap her hands on the floor, a far worse state compared to now. As she grew, perhaps maturing, her symptoms seemed to stabilize, now manifesting as crying intensely on the sofa. When Mia gets like this, both Henry and I stay by her side, never intervening or trying to do anything forceful. Mia, in her way of calming down, uses our hands to wipe her tears, seeking comfort through physical touch. But we don't initiate it. Mia has her own timing and needs. We've learned over these 6 years it's important to respond to her in that manner. "I'm sorry." When Mia calms down, she always apologizes to us, perhaps thinking she'll be scolded for crying. Her eyes, wet with tears, stare at us, trembling with fear. At that moment, we had no idea that this behavior was a result of Scarlett's treatment. "We're not mad at you. In fact, I'm sorry, Mia. I said something hard to you." "Good girl, good girl." Though she might not understand my words, she seemed to read my emotions from my expression. Mia, kneeling in front of me, gently stroked my hair. Even if her words are limited, her heart is so kind. What does a disability matter? It's just a part of who she is, her unique character. I love this gentle side of her. Thinking this and smiling, I heard Henry's voice suggesting it's time to sleep, and Mia, now ready to switch to bedtime mode, happily went with Henry to the bedroom. The next morning, a grim-faced Emma and Scarlett in a slovenly outfit arrived. "Thank you for yesterday. Emma's fever seems to have gone after sleeping all night, which really helped," Scarlett said in a manner as if a heart emoji should be at the end of her sentence, without a hint of remorse. Next to her, Emma looked upset for some reason. Curious, I was about to speak, but Mia, seeing her mother, lit up and rushed to embrace her, leaving me with no choice but to keep quiet. "Mom, you're back." "Mia." "I'm back, let's go home." Scarlett spoke to Mia as she hugged her. At that moment, I felt something off in Scarlett's smile. For a brief moment, it seemed like a look of laziness towards Mia. It was so brief that I couldn't be sure. Was it just my frustration from yesterday making me see things, or was there really something off? Unsure of the fleeting feeling, I couldn't confront her about it. "Then, we'll visit again soon." As Scarlett said this and took Mia's hand heading to the car, an angry-looking Emma handed me a letter. "Read this after we leave," Emma whispered, passing me the letter discreetly, making sure Scarlett didn't hear. Sensing something was seriously wrong, I took the letter without asking any further questions. After Scarlett left, I called Henry into the living room, and we read Emma's letter together. It contained shocking information. "Mom changed after finding a new boyfriend. She's hardly home and gives money to this man. She's using the prize money I won from a piano competition and a concert to pay him. She's leaving Mia with Grandma and Grandpa because this man has started to dislike Mia and finds her annoying. She sees me as a tool to earn money through piano. Soon, Mom might push Mia onto Grandma and Grandpa permanently. I'm okay, but please look after Mia." I was stunned and speechless at the unbelievable content of the letter, and at the end of it, I noticed what appeared to be a mobile phone email address. I remembered Scarlett mentioning that Emma's piano talents blossomed when she entered elementary school and that her lessons had become busier. Emma, even as a young child, had gained media attention for her skills and had now become a piano prodigy, attracting nationwide attention. Things have become rather dangerous lately, so I decided to give her a mobile phone. It seems normal these days for elementary school kids to have one, and I thought it wouldn't be a problem. If she's receiving media attention, it's a natural concern and precaution for a parent to have. I remember hearing this story and thinking how times have changed. This email address must belong to Emma's mobile phone. Emma is quite a smart girl. If she's written down her mobile phone address, it means she isn't being monitored by Scarlett. It must be safe to contact her there. Believing this to be Emma's address, I decided to reach out. Good evening. Is this Emma's address? Yes, it's me. Thanks for reading my letter. Grandma, please help Mia. I received this reply after 10 p.m. Probably just as she was going to bed. I then exchanged several messages with Emma. Tell me more about what's happening. Make sure to delete our messages afterward. Of course. I wasn't really sick yesterday. It was all a lie so Mom could go see her boyfriend. I was left at a friend's house and Mom went out with him. He seems to be in a band and Mom's always following him around. She's using the money I earn from piano competitions to spend time with him. I don't really mind, but Mia, she's treated terribly at home. Mia doesn't understand and always smiles, but after being scolded, she cries a lot and is inconsolable. Mom prioritizes her boyfriend over us now. She's happy when I give her money. But as long as Mia is around, Mom will continue to treat her horribly. The boyfriend even said to leave Mia with you and Grandpa. Mia might be happier with you. So please, help Mia. I'll do anything for her. Reading the message to the end, I couldn't stop my tears. Such a young girl, only 6 years old, desperately trying to protect her sister. Especially since she's the same age as her. Sacrificing herself without a second thought. What a terrible mother to make such a young child feel this way. What are you planning to do? You could be in danger too. I'll be okay. Mom needs me as long as I can play the piano. If it gets too much, I'll threaten to quit. I want to become better at piano. If that means using them to my advantage. That man seems well connected in the industry, so I'll use that to my advantage. So don't worry about me. But please, take care of Mia. I can't protect her. Can she really be only 6 years old? Her maturity made me feel her strength. But we never know what might happen. Not to overdo it, to rely on us if things get tough. And to keep in touch without fail. And be careful not to lose contact. I promised her 3 things. I agreed to help Emma. A month later, Scarlett's irresponsible behavior continued, and we were constantly being inconvenienced. But we couldn't let anything happen to Mia. We even started to say that we wanted to take care of Mia ourselves to protect her and keep our promise to Emma. One day, Scarlett came to our house with Mia, asking for a favor. I might be going abroad soon. What? Henry, listening with me, also looked shocked. Emma's piano teacher thinks highly of her talent. She might get to study with a famous teacher in Italy. If she does well there, she'll become a world-famous pianist. That's why I came to ask if you could take care of Mia. It's impossible to take her abroad. I couldn't help but doubt Scarlett's story. Emma hadn't mentioned anything like this. There was no reason for her to keep such a big secret. I stared at Scarlett suspiciously. Can you take Mia upstairs? I need to talk to Scarlett alone. Henry seemed to understand from my expression. He took Mia and left the living room. Tell me the truth. What? Emma going abroad, such a sudden decision isn't plausible, is it? Also, the last time you left Mia with us, a friend of mine saw you walking around town with a man. If you keep hiding the truth unnecessarily, I'll have to take appropriate action. What's the real reason? Tell me the truth. The story about a friend spotting her was a lie. But I thought it necessary to shake her up. Fooled by my words, Scarlett revealed her true colors. If you already knew everything, you should have said so earlier. There was no need for such an act. What? Her sudden change in demeanor took me by surprise. Her tone and attitude were so unbelievable that I couldn't see her as the kind Scarlett I knew. To be clear, Mia is a nuisance. Just saying she has a developmental disability lowers my chances of remarrying significantly. Emma's success does offset that to some extent, but being a mother of a child with disabilities, nobody wants to associate with me. So, for my and Emma's happiness, I want you to take Mia. It's better for Emma to have a father, right? It would be good for my mental health too. Scarlett spoke nonchalantly, without a hint of remorse. I was speechless, unable to comprehend her words. She said something even more surprising. In short, I'm giving Mia to you. Emma is all I need. You are happy about having a grandchild, so it works out perfectly, right? She talked about Mia being a useless burden and a financial strain, laughing. I couldn't recognize her as a human being. Mia still loves her as a mother. Mia, so pure and earnest, loves her mother despite the terrible treatment. Thinking of Mia's feelings made me furious at Scarlett's attitude and words. But I didn't want to argue. For us, Mia is a precious remnant of our son. Rather than being raised by such a worthless parent, we wanted to take care of her and make her happy. Calming myself, I responded to her words. Then, I'll raise her. In return, you'll never see Mia again. I'll tell her that her mother has passed away. For her sake, never call yourself her mother again. Don't ever show up in front of her. Yeah. Do whatever you want. I'm happy to get rid of such a useless child. Scarlett said this, stretched her arms out wide as if relieved, and left our house without telling Mia anything. Thus, Mia came to live with us as our adopted daughter. Of course, the first few months were tumultuous. Mia was distraught over her mother's absence, causing a great deal of mental strain. We reached out to doctor acquaintances, invited specialists to our home, and collaborated with therapeutic institutions, focusing on her support. Thanks to that, a few months later, Mia returned to school and was able to live a more settled life. 10 years later, when Mia was in her first year of high school, an incident occurred. One afternoon, someone repeatedly rang our doorbell. It was a holiday, and we were spending time together as a family. Who could it be, ringing the bell so many times? Irritated by the rude visit, I went to the door and grimaced when I saw who it was through the peephole. I know you're there. Come out. Give back Mia, you thieving family. There stood Scarlett, whom we had cut ties with 10 years ago, and a flamboyantly dressed man. Possibly he is the boyfriend from the rumors. What's going on? The front door seems noisy. Henry. Scarlett found our house and has come to visit suddenly. What? We had moved to change our lives after cutting ties with Scarlett. We bought a place convenient for our jobs, never expecting she would find us. Henry and I exchanged looks, wondering what to do. It's okay, Grandma, Grandpa. Let them in. I want to settle things with that person. Mia was now 16. Her developmental disability had stabilized, and she could communicate normally. Though she still had intense fixations and could get absorbed in things, these traits helped her succeed in a certain venture. You're late. If you're inside, just let us in quickly. Scarlett had changed into a completely different person from the one who used to live with our son. As soon as she entered our house, she sat down next to a man on the sofa, crossing her arms and legs in an arrogant manner and glaring at us, clearly in a bad mood. Though her attitude was irksome, reacting to her provocations would only play into her hands. We took a deep breath to maintain our calm, sat across from her, and asked what this was all about. You have no business bringing strangers into my house. What do you want now, after cutting ties with me 10 years ago? Mia was sitting at a nearby workbench, busy with some writing. Fortunately, when she's in this focused mode, she doesn't hear anything around her. Knowing she wouldn't be bothered by our argument, we were told to have our discussion here. Glancing sideways at Mia, Scarlett smirked and arrogantly declared, It's simple. I've come to take Mia back. She's my daughter, so it's my right to have her back, isn't it? What is this woman talking about? Has she forgotten what she said that day, 10 years ago? Lost for words at Scarlett's absurd thinking, a stern-looking Henry addressed her in a low voice. You said you didn't want Mia and discarded her. We told Mia her mother was dead, and that should have been the end of it. That was just a verbal agreement. Besides, Mia knows I'm alive through the letters I sent her, right? If her mother is alive, there's no reason for us to live apart. Scarlett's defiant reply was infuriating. She had bombarded our home with letters once she learned of Mia's talent and even showed up at her school to make her presence known. Do you have any idea how much pain your selfish actions have caused Mia? Scarlett's actions had recklessly stirred up Mia's emotions. Believing her mother was dead, Mia was so disturbed by this revelation that she couldn't even go to school for a while. However, thanks to her friends and a certain child, she gradually recovered and was able to return to her normal life. I'm telling you, I'll take proper care of her from now on. So hand over Mia to me. Enough already. Scarlett, eager to justify herself and demand Mia's return, was interrupted by Mia herself. Mia threw a pen at near Scarlett's face, and she stepped up to Scarlett, shaking her fist in anger. You never cared about me. You dumped me with Grandma and others because I was in the way of your time with that man. And now you claim to be a mother? Don't make me laugh. To me, you're not a mother at all. We could never have imagined she would speak like this when she was little. She used to accept everything her mother did with a smile, never showing anger. But living with us, Mia had changed. She developed a rich emotional life, and thanks to therapy, her teachers, and friends, she learned to express herself. She even learned to distinguish right from wrong. In defiance of her mother, who had abandoned her, Mia honed a particular talent. So, she must not forgive Scarlett, who had chose the man getting along well over her. Scarlett didn't know how much I understood about Mia. She also didn't realize that she was being betrayed by a certain child. You're just greedy for money. I knew you'd show up sooner or later. After all, you know I'm the author of that movie. At those words, Scarlett's face showed a flicker of unease. After we took her in, we had Mia try various things. Scarlett had made Mia play the piano like Emma, but it wasn't for Mia. That was the real reason she considered abandoning Mia. We had heard about this from a certain child and encouraged Mia to explore her interests and take her to places she wanted to visit. As a result, Mia discovered a talent for something special. It was drawing. She had an exceptional artistic sense. Her imagination was beyond our expectations. As Henry and I, both of whom work in animation, recognize her excellent work. I tried showing it to a certain author. We even showed her work to a famous industry figure, who has an award named after him. His high praise led to her drawings being immediately adopted by my company's editorial department. She demonstrates stellar performance in drawing, which was made into an animated TV series and films in a flash. Now, I'm worth more than Emma. You thought you could use me to pay off the money you spent on that man and your ballooning gambling debts, didn't you? Too bad. I know all about your wrongdoings. Who would want to go back to a terrible parent like you now? Get out. My real parents are Grandpa, Grandma, and Dad. Scarlett was shaken by these unexpected words from Mia. Why did she know everything? We hadn't even talked about it, so how did she find out? In the midst of confusion and agitation, the man next to her was showing anger at being yelled at. What are you saying to Mother who gave birth to you? Did I ask to be born? You gave birth to me, abandoned me, and now you come back for your own convenience. I don't want to hear Mother from someone who's only interested in money. Who would go back to a greedy woman like you? Get out now. Just the thought of you makes me sick. Scarlett was speechless from the shock and surprise of being defied. The man next to her stood up in anger, about to grab her. Just as we stood up to stop him, a voice came from the living room entrance. If you do that, I'll show this video to the police and have you thrown in jail right now. Everyone turned to see Emma at the entrance, holding her mobile phone camera. She was supposed to be in Italy. Why is Emma here? Isn't she in Italy? I asked my teacher to reschedule my lessons. I thought you'd try to get in touch with Mia while I was away and bring her back to our house. I'm glad I kept in touch with her beforehand. As I thought, you came to Grandma and Grandpa's place. Emma said this and walked next to Mia, filming the man to protect him. Emma had explained everything to Mia and had always been there to protect her. She continued to use the man next to Scarlett. With his knowledge of the music industry, she might be able to meet the foreign pianist she admired. She wouldn't spare money to fulfill her dream. And she had a plan to leave Scarlett when the time came. This is my investment to fulfill my dream. It's not hard at all. They're so stupid. They don't know I'm secretly having Grandma manage the money. The reward money I give them is just a fraction, so don't worry. Emma, now a middle school student, began studying about money and law. She had grown up to be as knowledgeable as an adult, talking about her family situation at work and getting full support from the office. Thanks to that, Emma's bank account had enough savings to live on her own. She was finally ready for settling in Italy, which has been her long-cherished dream leaving Scarlett, so she talked to Mia about it in advance. I've been adopted by Grandma and Grandpa too. What? Scarlett was visibly confused by this unexpected turn of events. The man next to her hadn't anticipated this either. In a panic, he pressed Scarlett about what to do. After all the good times I've given you, you should be satisfied by now. I don't need trash like you around me as I become big. Emma and I have never considered you our mother, so rest assured. Don't ever show yourself to us again. We've already talked to Grandma and Grandpa about the adoption. All that's left is your consent, but we're prepared for a refusal and have already contacted a lawyer. I'm so happy to think I'll finally be able to live with Emma again. Well, I live in Italy, so we won't see each other often, but considering everything we've been through, it's easy, right? Now we can enjoy many things together again. Seeing them happy, I couldn't help but smile, and an infuriated Scarlett reached for my collar. You're the one! You filled Emma's head with nonsense. But Emma quickly turned her camera to Scarlett to protect her. Don't get the wrong idea. I made this proposal to Grandma and Grandpa on my own. You thought I was your ally, so you never suspected me. I always comforted you, didn't I? But I've never once thought of you as my mother. My parents are my deceased father, and Grandma and Grandpa, who still love us. Scarlett, who had never been defied by them before, looked like it was the end of the world. She sat down on the sofa in a daze, unable to accept reality. Mia has always longed for you. With Scarlett in such a pathetic state, I delivered the final blow. You rejected the love she repeatedly sought from her mother. You, drowned in men, have no right to call yourself a mother. I will take good care of Mia and Emma with Henry. Don't ever come near these kids again. You are no longer their family. Hearing this, Scarlett broke down in tears. She kept calling for Mia and Emma, but her pleas never reached them. As they asked to be kicked out, Henry turned Scarlett and the man away. If you persist, I'll call the police. At this threat, they left the house scared. Since then, Scarlett and the man visited several times, begging to have them returned. But their persistence disgusted Mia, and she reported them to the police. Under the anti-stalking law, they were forbidden to approach Mia, ensuring her safety. Thus, they successfully severed ties with Scarlett. Their lingering feelings cleared, Mia and Emma lived freely. Emma became a world-famous pianist, met her destiny in Italy, and now performs concerts worldwide with her violinist lover. As for Mia, her movie adaptation was a global hit, making her a popular creator. We've been involved in her works and now support her life as a united family. Trash housekeeper! Hurry up and prepare the meal! Instead of worrying about me as I collapsed from dizziness, my husband George shoved me away annoyingly and glared at me with irritation. As his attitude drained the color from my face, I slumped to the floor, leaning against it, while he started watching TV, ignoring me completely. Staring blankly at this unbelievable scene, someone suddenly appeared behind George, blurting out words of surprise to him. "Is that all you have to say?" Right after, George turned around to see who it was and his face turned pale with shock. "My name is Marie. I'm a 34-year-old housewife. I've been married to George, who is 5 years my senior, for almost 2 years now. These 2 years have been like living in hell." "What is this disgusting meal? Didn't you learn to cook for my mom?" For the first year of our marriage, I lived with his parents. It was, so to speak, training for marriage. George is an extreme mama's boy, and his mother, Catherine, was what you'd call a zealously educational mom. She was incredibly strict about manners, my rules. No talking back aloud. A perfect example of a parent whose behavior negatively influences their children. A woman should be this way, and it's only natural to respect your husband. A wife who can't prioritize her husband is just useless. Raised in such a family environment, George was looking for a wife like his mom, he murmured when we first got married. Unaware of all this, I was easily swayed by his sweet talk, resulting in a hellish marriage. "Marie, what I want for you is to be a devoted wife to George, supporting him. For that, I'll need to be tough on you, to raise you strictly. All of this is to ensure you two can live happily as a couple. Please bear with it." As Catherine declared, from the day we started living together, she used me like a servant. Doing chores was a given, and reading the room was a must. I had to wake up earlier than anyone in the family, and I wasn't allowed to rest until I had sent everyone off to work. I had to start eating after everyone else and finish before them, or I'd be lectured for an hour. Any slight difference in taste would result in being verbally beaten by Catherine and George. They successfully trained me to be a wife who wouldn't dare defy her husband. Now, I'm scared to even express my opinion to him. If he comes home in a low mood, I spend the mealtime trembling in fear. What part of this is a harmonious family life? Now, I only have doubts, but back then, I was completely disheartened and didn't even have the energy to think about it. It's like you can't do any household chores properly. What has your mother taught you? At this rate, it would be easier to train a stray cat. About a week after starting to live in my in-laws' house, Catherine's true nature began to show, and from that moment on, I was subjected to daily sarcastic comments. Cleaning the hallway with a rag was the norm. Not a speck of dust or dirt was allowed. It was natural to serve homemade food to your husband. No matter how hard it was, cutting corners was not allowed. To top it off, I was told to do the laundry by hand. Even though there was a perfectly good drum washing machine right in front of me, I was not allowed to use it. For a housewife who has time on her hands, seeking convenience is outrageous. A housewife is supposed to suffer through hand pain. You're the first daughter-in-law I've seen who only learns to take it easy. While complaining loudly, Catherine effortlessly used the drum washing machine right in front of me. Unable to endure the overly harsh environment, I once cried to George for help, but he refused to listen to my concerns. How could you insult someone's mother like that? What kind of education did you receive to grow up into such a person? My family is perfect. Maybe it's your fault that mom has to discipline you so harshly? George never acknowledged any fault in his mother. Instead, he frequently misused the word discipline, as if he thought of me as no better than a dog or a cat. Mom is right. There's nothing wrong with what she says. It's like he's a follower. Completely brainwashed, he wouldn't even pretend to listen to me, settling everything with "it's all your fault." This was also reported to Catherine, and from the next day I was forced to go shopping on foot. I was not even allowed to use public transport for shopping trips, no matter how far. I had to walk everywhere. From now on, live your life in a dress. The disorder in your lifestyle stems from your behavior. Welcome your husband home in a dress. Eat all your meals standing up. I won't allow you to sit in a chair. The level of harassment I faced as his wife was beyond what could be dismissed with just a quaint word. I thought about running away, unable to endure any longer, but I had no parents, and my only sibling, my brother Tony, was married and living in India. I had nowhere and no one to turn to for help. I cried every day and night, gradually wearing down mentally. By the time we finished our marriage training and started living together, I was emaciated. I was drained physically and emotionally. Honey, please. I feel sick. Can you let me go to the hospital? About a week after we started living together. I hadn't had my period, and I was plagued by daily nausea and headaches. I decided to talk to George about my poor health. There was no chance of pregnancy since we hadn't been intimate since getting married. If not that, then perhaps it was indeed an illness. The headache was too severe to even get up, and my body felt weak and unresponsive like anemia. My condition was clearly severe, beyond what could be endured quietly. When I spoke to him with a pale face, he responded with annoyance and refused my request. What do you mean by feeling sick? Be specific. You're always lacking in details. Are you even thinking before you speak? Raised spoiled by your parents, that's why you ended up like this. Thinking others will understand your feelings with just a little hint, that's why you can't manage yourself. I'm tired, you know. Don't waste my precious time with your words. Make your point quickly and specifically. Don't irritate me with every little thing. Hearing his sarcastic complaints made my ears hurt and worsened my headache. I regretted getting married in this insane situation. He never showed any signs of this behavior while we were dating, but as soon as we got married, this happened. He used to be kind, always sincere, and full of charm, popular at work. Marie is really clumsy and can't be left alone. I worked at the same company as George. When I got the job at this major company after studying hard, Tony was so happy that he cried. At that time, my parents were still alive. So when I got the job, Tony came back from India for me, and we spent time together as a family. If you ever have any trouble, call me anytime. Even if we're apart, I'm still your brother. Tony, 7 years my senior, really doted on me. There were aspects of George that reminded me of Tony, which drew me to him. He was caring, laughed off my clumsiness, sincere, smart, and a reliable big brother figure to everyone. He was someone I admired. With the headache, nausea, and dizziness. I'll go get some medicine from the hospital, so please, could you give me some money for the consultation? I couldn't feel a trace of his kindness from back then. Not a speck remained. Now, he seemed like a completely different person. Cruel to the point where the word brutal fits, not seeing me as a person. He looked at me with a scornful gaze, as if he was looking at trash, instilling nothing but fear in me. It's all just indulgence. What? I didn't expect to receive any money honestly, but I was at a loss for words at his unexpected response. Living as a housewife, being pampered, and yet you complain? Where in your lifestyle do you find the cause for dizziness, nausea, headaches? It's all just excuses to avoid doing household chores. That's not. I didn't mean that. Not working outside, and you talk about headaches. That's laughable. Just take some over-the-counter medicine and get over it. I won't allow a waste of money. The household finances were entirely managed by George's salary. He confessed before we got married that he couldn't do anything around the house and wanted me to handle the household chores as a housewife. Don't worry about money. Whether we have 3 or 4 kids, I'll earn enough working outside. I want you to do what I can't. Even I, as unreliable as I was happy to be of help to him. I had no hesitations about leaving my job if it meant being his support. I believed we would have a happy life together. But this was the reality that awaited me. I became like a bird trapped in a cage, forced into a constrained life. Enough, someone, please help me. After George, who wouldn't even consider my illness, stormed out of the living room in anger, I collapsed on the spot and cried. I was overwhelmed by a ceaseless flow of sorrow, lacking the will to fight back. I wanted to disappear. If I had to stay here, I'd rather end my life. Mentally and physically cornered, I left the house without telling him, heading outside. Walking for a while, I unknowingly passed near where my childhood home used to be. Having run out barefoot, I realized my feet were in tatters. I couldn't walk any further. It was a slightly chilly autumn. I was lightly dressed, so the cold wind made me shiver. What would happen if I just let the cold take me? Could I find an easy way to the next world? As I collapsed in front of the empty house that used to be mine, I lay down on the ground. I couldn't think of anything. I didn't want to. I just wanted to disappear. That's when I heard it. Through my hazy consciousness, I heard someone calling me. Hey! Hold on! Open your eyes! Feeling a sense of nostalgia for the unknown voice, my consciousness faded away. I woke up to find myself lying on the bed. Having shone an unfamiliar ceiling and slowly opened my eyes to a warm room and the smell of delicious bread. As I tried to sit up and look around to grasp the situation. Awake now? A slightly older man who felt strangely familiar stood there. As I felt wary of this person I didn't recognize, he saw my fear and laughed heartily. What, you don't remember? Well, no surprise there. It's been over 20 years, after all. Hearing his cheerful laughter and words, a memory flashed in my mind. Could it be Mike? Spot on. Long time no see, Marie. I was passing by your family's old house and saw you collapsed. Seriously freaked me out. What were you doing there? Mike. My childhood friend and Tony's best friend, with whom I used to play until middle school. He moved away when we entered high school, and though we lost touch, he and Tony had remained in contact, and apparently, he had heard a lot about me. Now, he's the owner of a transport company and a father of 2. I never thought Mike would be here. I was visiting my grandma's grave with my family and decided to take a trip here. More importantly, what happened? You were so cold when I found you, I rushed you to my parents' house. Mike's wife, Lily, a nurse, had assessed my condition and decided it was safe for me to rest, so they took me to Mike's parents' house. There, he kindly listened to my situation. Lily stayed by my side, crying at the story of a stranger, and hugged me, saying how hard it must have been. Unforgivable. Someone who can't see others as people should be left immediately. I also want to escape that house. But I have no relatives or friends to turn to. Lily's words were exactly what I had been thinking. But she understood my situation as well. Tears flowed as I spoke of my hardships, and she was visibly troubled, searching for words. If you had a place to live and a job, would that solve the problem? Huh? Hearing our conversation, Mike suddenly asked this, leaving me puzzled, unsure of what he meant. Then, he made a call, and after finishing the conversation, he turned to me with a bright smile. Marie, we will definitely help you out. So, you're leaving that house. I'll support you. Confused by what he meant, Mike showed me a reassuring smile, signaling he's got this. Little did I know at that moment, this would be the start of my fight back. After hearing my situation, Mike took me in until my condition stabilized. Lily called George, and probably because it was someone else intervening, he didn't try to forcefully take me back. Being away from George seemed to have stabilized me mentally, and my physical condition improved somewhat. However, Lily strongly suggested I visit a hospital. Marie tends to endure too much, thinking you can handle it, but don't underestimate the illnesses that come from mental stress. Once this is all settled, we must go to the hospital. I'll come with you. Her genuine concern was evident, and I gratefully accepted her kindness, prioritizing my rest for the time being. A week passed, and Mike said everything was ready, suggesting we go back to my house once. If anything happens, call me right away. I have my mobile phone. Mike, thank you for everything. Encouraged by his dependable words, I decided to return home. Mike accompanied me to the entrance, where George, flustered, welcomed us. Marie, are you okay? How's your health? Anything wrong? George, unlike his usual stern self, seemed to be playing the devoted husband, concerned for my well-being. His drastically changed demeanor filled me with fear. He hugged me as if to take me away from Mike, letting out a sigh of relief. Marie, I was wrong. I failed to empathize with your suffering, and I'm responsible for the pain I caused. I'm truly sorry. Thank you for coming back. Frozen by his unexpected words, I met Mike's gaze, who silently mouthed "Be strong" to me before discreetly leaving so as not to arouse George's suspicion. Once Mike was out of sight, George stepped back and, ruffling his hair in frustration, let out a big sigh. You know what you've done, right? His words, muttered with annoyance, froze me with fear. His tone was now cold, as if he was bothered by the inconvenience I brought. Hesitant to enter, George forcibly pulled me inside and roughly let go of my hand. Relying on some guy I don't even know. I never thought you were such a shameful woman. His hurtful words brought tears to my eyes. Despite my resolve to be strong upon returning, his gaze and harsh words made me tremble uncontrollably. I'm scared. I want to leave. It's too hard. As these thoughts swirled in my heart, my vision darkened with dizziness. As I leaned on him, about to fall, he pushed me away in disgust, spitting out words with annoyance. Stop with the act. I don't even want to touch someone as filthy as you. Pushed by him, I stumbled against the wall and collapsed in the hallway. Without a care for me, George turned on the TV, lounged on the sofa, and ordered me to do housework. Housekeeper, get the meal ready. Because of you, I haven't had a decent meal in a week. Cooking and laundry are all you're good for, so hurry up and get it done. Looking around, I saw piles of laundry and dishes left out. The house in complete disarray. I can't do this anymore. I can't go on with this person. I want a divorce. Just as I thought this, someone approached George from behind and spoke up. Is that all you have to say? Shocked by the familiar voice, George slowly turned around to see the person standing there, his face draining of color. Tony! Why are you here? There stood Tony, supposed to be in India, his presence bringing panic to George's face. Never mind that. What the hell have you been doing to my sister, huh? Tony's intimidating presence made George tremble with fear. Tony, who had been working in civil construction in India, had grown bigger and more robust since leaving the U.S. It was no surprise that George, with his slender frame, would be intimidated by Tony's approach. Especially considering Tony's disdain for people who behave inhumanely. George's actions were unforgivable in Tony's eyes, making his anger entirely justified. No, well, I was just educating my wife or guiding her. Huh, I never knew that pushing a sick woman was part of educating your wife. George desperately tried to justify his actions. At that moment, Mike, who had supposedly left, peeked into the living room, flashing a refreshing smile and addressed George. What are you doing here? How did you get in? How? The door was unlocked. You have to check these things. Even with autolock, it won't work if the door isn't properly closed. What he pulled out was a thin handkerchief, stained as if it had been wedged in something. No way! When you hugged me, I dropped it on the floor so the door wouldn't close. That way, Mike and the others could easily get into the house later. Supported by Lily, I managed to stand up, despite feeling dizzy. George's expression, as he alternated between looking at me and Tony, was filled with panic and fear. Realizing the trick Mike and I had used to enter and that this had been planned from the start left George in shock. He had always left security concerns to me, so it was clear he wouldn't have checked the lock himself, assuming the door would lock automatically. He never worried about it, which was easy to predict. I've heard all about it from Marie and Mike. You seem to have taken good care of my sister while I was in India. I've recorded this entire conversation. Marie has been meticulously keeping a diary of everything, and we've recorded all texts and calls from you. All of it has been submitted to a lawyer. We'll be demanding compensation for everything, including Marie's health issues. From now on, you'll deal with a lawyer regarding the divorce. Don't you dare come near our family ever again. Everyone glared at George, protecting me and ensuring he had no allies. Tony spoke for me, preventing George's sweet words from swaying me. Hearing the word divorce, George became frantic, reaching out to cling to me. Wait. Please reconsider the divorce. I can't live without Marie. I need her to survive. George desperately tried to portray himself as pitiful. It was clear he needed me for various reasons, but his words no longer reached me. His true intention was to use me, to live comfortably at my expense, and to vent his frustrations on me. I knew what his sweet words really meant, and I wouldn't be fooled again. Mike and Tony bravely intervened to stop George's desperate attempts to win me back. From behind them, I finally voiced my long-suppressed feelings towards George with a coldness I had never shown before. With you, I never had a moment of happiness in our marriage. It was a daily struggle, thinking only of escaping. Who would want to stay in such a home? I want nothing to do with you from now on. Don't you dare come near me or my loved ones ever again. Perhaps because I had never shown my emotions like this before, George stopped resisting in shock. Overwhelmed by the reality before him, he collapsed, drained of all strength. Thus, I was finally freed from George's malevolence and decided to move to India with Tony. After things settled down, I went straight to the hospital with Lily by my side and was diagnosed with depression. Mike suggested that it would be best for my recovery to stay at his place for a while before starting a new life, and I gratefully accepted his offer. We're here for you. You can rely on us for anything. If that husband of yours tries to barge in, I'll kick him out myself. Just leave it to me. Tony and I deeply appreciated their reassuring words and kindness. The reason for Tony's return to US was a call from Mike, who had been on the phone with Tony at that time, informing him of my situation and convincing him to come back immediately. Why didn't you rely on me? Although Tony scolded me upon his return, knowing I struggled to ask for help, he also apologized for not coming to check on me sooner in US and hugged me tightly, apologizing repeatedly. Thanks to Tony's quick actions in arranging a lawyer and accommodation, the situation was resolved smoothly. From now on, live with us over there. Learning a foreign language might be tough, but my wife and friends will give you all the support you need, so don't worry. Saying so, Tony offered me a job at his company, where his colleagues welcomed me warmly. As for George, he and his mother were sued for moral harassment by us and are now chased by debts. After explaining everything to my former colleagues before leaving US, George lost his position at his company. Losing his credibility, life at the company became difficult for him, leading to his resignation. He now lives at his parents' home, scraping by on day-to-day jobs. He sent me a letter of apology which said the incident taught him that bad actions come back to haunt you. But of course, I couldn't trust his words and made sure to receive compensation from him. My long-living health finally came to an end. Now I live a comfortable and joyful life in India, surrounded by kind people. Hey, mister. I'm the daughter of this company's owner, all right? My dad's the boss. Don't lump me with these lowly, poor employees. Surprised by both her vulgarity and her true identity, my dad paused with a shocked expression, then cleared his throat softly. Meanwhile, Carol wore a smug look, as if she had just made a grand statement. Remembering that Dad originally came to our company for business, I realized we couldn't afford to cause any more trouble. So I tried to apologize to Carol. Just then, Dad spoke in a low voice. So, the lower ranks are the poor employees, huh? Maybe it's time to revise the salary structure. He muttered this almost to himself. What? Are you mocking me? Fine. Mister, what's your name? Which subcontractor do you work for? I'll tell Dad about you. It might just be your fault if the company goes under. Carol retorted. Dad, looking slightly puzzled, thought for a moment before breaking into a smile. Then, let's go say hello to the boss. Lenore and the others, come along. Everyone except Dad looked shocked, but he walked ahead. Not wanting to be left behind, we hurried after him. My name is Lenore. I'm a hardworking 28-year-old. The company I work for is quite large, and I work tirelessly every day. My dad, concerned about me, contacts me once a week, but I always reply with, "Don't worry," trying to reassure him, almost forcibly. His concern is probably because he wants to recruit me to his company. 7 years ago, when I was still a college student, I was busy with job hunting every day to secure a job offer. Dad, who runs his own company, once invited me to join his company, saying, "Why bother with job hunting? You can just come work for my company." It's not that I didn't want to go to his company, but I didn't want to rely on such connections. I wanted to succeed on my own merit. And I wanted to work alongside him, as an equal, once I was fully competent at my job. I explained this and persuaded him. Reluctantly, he agreed, and I joined my current company. It's been 6 years since I started working here. Now, I have more responsibilities, and I even have subordinates. And it's our busy season. It's not uncommon for our department heads to be absent from the office for an entire day during this time, and sometimes I can't even sit at my desk for more than 30 minutes. We're that busy. I don't have the luxury of constantly worrying about Dad's feelings. Today, I've been bustling around the office since morning. Even amidst the rush, a shrill voice caught my ear as I passed by a meeting room, prompting me to stop. The door was slightly ajar, and peering inside, I saw a woman with a tray bowing her head before another woman who sat arrogantly, berating her. "How many times do I have to tell you? I don't like coffee, I want Coke." It seemed the employee had brought the wrong beverage. The angry woman looked younger than me, but whose guest was she? A frequent complainer, perhaps? It's disgraceful to fuss over complimentary beverages. I wondered what her parents would think. Just as I was about to open the door and intervene. "Ah, there she goes again." I heard a voice behind me. Turning around, I saw my colleague Sissy peeking into the room. "You scared me. Don't just start talking out of nowhere." I chided her in a whisper, careful not to be overheard. "Sorry, but it's unexpected to see you peeking, Lenore," she said with a mischievous grin. Sissy is only a year younger than me, even though she's my subordinate. We get along well and often go out for drinks. Professionally, she's my subordinate, but in our private lives, we're like friends. I wasn't peeking. "By the way, Sissy, do you know who that woman is?" I asked. "Oh, she's quite notorious around here," Sissy replied with a slight smirk. "That's Carol, the boss's only daughter." "His daughter? But why is she here?" I inquired, puzzled. "She occasionally comes to play around like this, throwing her weight around with the staff. No one dares to contradict her because she's the boss's daughter." As Sissy explained, Carol continued to berate the employee. "Go buy me a Coke. What's your name? I'll tell Dad," she shouted. I want to help that employee, my colleague, but I hesitated. "Let's get back to work for now, Lenore," Sissy suggested. "Poor thing, we don't keep Coke for guests." Sissy gently closed the meeting room door, holding the handle that I was gripping. She enjoys bossing the staff around like this. She never actually reports anyone. Last week, it was ginger ale. "You have work to do, Lenore. She's not worth your time." Her words reminded me of the tasks I had to complete. Sissy, are you free now? Want to come to the warehouse with me?" "Sure. I was actually looking for you. I have some business there too." We left the meeting room, the shouts still echoing, with heavy hearts. Why does Carol come here to play? She should be having fun with friends. She looks college-aged. I pondered aloud while checking inventory in the warehouse. Apparently, she's joining the company next year. She's been visiting frequently for that. You'd think she'd rather be with friends, but she doesn't seem to have many," Sissy commented. True. I mused, feeling uneasy about Carol. Shouldn't she value the employees who support her family's business? Especially since they'll be her coworkers and supervisors next year? It's not right to treat them as mere playthings. Does she not realize she's embarrassing her parents? As I pondered these things, the pressure of my pen on the inventory notes inadvertently grew stronger. Noticing this, Sissy glanced at my notes. "I get why you're angry, Lenore. She's exactly the type of person you dislike the most," she said with a wry smile. "That's true, but what really irks me is the boss and the executives who say nothing. They should reprimand her for such behavior. Apparently, she's an overindulged child, born late in her father's life," Sissy explained with a gentle smile, easing me back into work mode. Thanks to her, I managed to finish the warehouse work surprisingly quickly. Exhausted from the day, I was heading home when my mobile phone rang. It was a message from Dad. "Lenore, I'm coming to your company tomorrow for a business deal. If you're free, I'd like to see you." I was surprised. Dad was visiting my office? The company I work for is in the same industry as his company, and I knew they were connected, but it was the first time he had shown his face at my company in the 6 years I've been working there. I hoped to see him, but it really depended on timing, so I just replied, "If I'm free, I'll come and see you. Let me know." And then closed the message. The next day, my office was busy, but things started to calm down by lunchtime. While eating, I received a message from Dad. "I'll be at your company soon." I checked the time and decided to wait for him outside. As I got up, Sissy, sitting next to me, asked, "Where are you rushing off to, Lenore? It's still lunch break." "Oh, my dad is visiting the office today. I thought I'd go say hi since it's been a while." "What? Can I come too, just to greet him?" she asked excitedly. "Sure, let's go together," I agreed. Sissy followed me, checking her reflection in the window and fixing her hair. I was pleased to have such an eager subordinate. while Sissy and I waited for my dad at the entrance. "Is that him?" She suddenly pointed to a taxi. I shook my head. Steve would have driven his own car rather than take a taxi. As we looked in the opposite direction, a shrill voice called out, "Nice of you to meet me here." I pretended not to hear, but Sissy made a disgusted face as if to say this is the worst. "Hey, you over there, where are you looking? I'm right here." I turned around, frustrated. And there was Carol. She was dressed inappropriately for the office, in a flouncy miniskirt and casual t-shirt, clacking her heels as she walked towards us. "Excuse me, but you're mistaken. We're waiting for someone else here," I said, looking away again. In an ear-piercing tone, Carol shouted, "What's with that attitude? Aren't you an employee here? Apologize right now." Sissy looked at me with a panicked expression. "Yes, I'm an employee. But why should I apologize?" I responded calmly. "What?" Carol seemed even more incensed by this. "You, a lowly employee, think you can talk to me like that? Really, old lady?" "Well, a company needs its lowly employees, doesn't it? And for your information, I'm only 28, not an old lady." Carol burst into laughter at my reply. 28? You look much older. Is it hard being poor? I pity you," she said, pointing at me mockingly. I was furious, but I couldn't do much since she was the boss's daughter. I had to stand there, seething in silence, as she laughed. Then, "Hey, Lenore! Long time no see!" I heard a voice from afar. Approaching us was Dad, a slightly overweight, ordinary-looking man in a suit, waving his hand. "Who's that weird guy?" "Hilarious," Carol said, looking at him and laughing. That was the last straw for me. "Excuse me, that's rude." I raised my voice. "What? Who are you yelling at?" Carol yelled back. "What's going on? Are you all friends?" Unaware of the situation, Dad smiled at me kindly. "What? As if I would be friends with these people." Carol snapped at him, switching her target from me to him. Dad's expression changed immediately. "How rude to say these people when you are colleagues who work together." He was right, but Carol wasn't convinced. "Listen, old man. I'm the daughter of this company's owner. My dad is the boss. Don't lump me with these lowly, poor employees." Dad looked shocked by Carol's rudeness and her identity, then cleared his throat softly. Meanwhile, Carol looked smug, as if she had just triumphed. Remembering that Dad originally came to our company for business, I realized we couldn't afford to cause any more trouble. So I tried to apologize to Carol. But at that moment, Dad spoke in a low voice. "So, the lower ranks are the poor employees, huh? Maybe it's time to revise the salary structure." He muttered this to himself. "What? Are you mocking me? Fine. Mister, what's your name? Which subcontracting company are you from? I'll tell my dad about you. You might just ruin the company." Carol spat out. Dad, looking puzzled, thought for a moment before smiling. "Well then, let's go greet the boss. Lenore and the others, come along." The only one unfazed by the situation was Dad, who had already started walking ahead. Not wanting to be left behind, we quickly followed him. We reached the boss's office, and Dad entered first. Sissy and I followed, tense. Carol, pushing past us, rushed to her father. "Dad! This man, he..." She began to tattle immediately. Before Carol could finish, her father spoke loudly. "This man? Who are you talking to?" "I'm sorry, Steve. My daughter lacks manners." He shot Carol a sharp look to silence her, then turned to us with a smile. "Ah, it's your daughter with you today?" "Did you know about me?" I asked, surprised. Dad sat down on a sofa. "Wait, Dad," Carol protested. Dad gave me a kind look, then turned his sharp gaze to the boss. Earlier, your daughter called my daughter and her colleague lowly, poor employees. What's this about? The boss's face tightened. Well, they deserved it. They were rude to me, just low-end employees. Carol continued in her shrill voice. What? The boss turned pale and shouted angrily at Carol. What are you saying? This lady is the daughter of a valued client, and this man is her father and the current boss. Eh? Carol's face turned pale, realizing the gravity of her actions. To think such a large company still treats its employees as poor. You've become quite the boss, haven't you? If your employees are poor, shouldn't the company be ashamed? The boss was sweating profusely. I can't leave my daughter in such a place. She'll resign today. When the boss heard that, he immediately apologized to my dad and said, I'm terribly sorry. I've heard your daughter is very skilled. Please, not resignation. And you apologize to him. Wait, Dad. What's going on? I whispered to him. I had let the boss know that you were employed here, to look out for you. As I knew that you don't like the preferential treatment, I told him just to keep an eye out. Ignoring the boss and his daughter, Steve explained kindly. But I never thought this company would treat its employees like slaves. Lenore, you can quit now. You've done well here for 6 years. Come work for me. That's sudden. I can't just leave in the middle of the busy season. I protested. Dad seemed a bit exasperated by my response, but he eventually agreed. All right, if you insist. After this busy season, come work for my company. And you, it must be uncomfortable staying here after this. What do you say? The industry is the same. He kindly offered this to Sissy. Yes, absolutely. Sissy replied immediately. Wait, Sissy. I haven't decided yet. I protested. Sissy looked at me quizzically. Why not? Your dad's company is one of the elite in the country, and you're his daughter. Why wouldn't you go? Dad nodded in agreement with Sissy's words. I don't want to join his company just because of connections. I know Dad's company is big, but I didn't want to take the easy way. I explained. Sissy smiled happily. That's so like you, Lenore. And she continued. Lenore's father, I'm Sissy. I really appreciate that I can work with her. She is an outstanding boss. As she praised me, Dad smiled and sobbed along. I felt embarrassed and urged Dad to continue. Dad, the boss is still. Ah, right, forgot about that. Sorry, Sissy, we'll talk later. Yes. Sissy cheerfully replied. Now, boss, no need to apologize anymore. Let's end our business dealings here. As my dad finally addressed to him, he was surprised and looked up at Dad. That would be a great loss for us. I'm truly sorry. No, it's fine. This isn't because of the disrespectful behavior towards them. Then why? He asked. Please guide me. I'll improve anything. I'll definitely make improvements. The company would suffer a huge blow if they lost their dealings with Dad. That's why the boss kept apologizing repeatedly. Improvement is impossible. Once trust is lost, it can't be regained. You say employees are your priority, yet your daughter treats them like slaves. Did you think I wouldn't hear about it? I'm not sure. Even from the side, I can see Carol turned pale. I could demote you from the boss, but should I? Dad asked. Please, forgive me. The boss pleaded. Hey, Dad. Just because you're a valued client, you can't really do that, can you? I asked. I can. Dad replied with a smile, indicating he really had the power. I don't inquire deeply into the relationship between the boss and Dad, but Dad might be more powerful in this industry than I thought. With this realization, the both attitudes of my dad and the boss make sense. I won't go that far since I'm not a child, but I will end our contract. Thank you for your business." With that, he stood up, straightening his suit. "Please, I'm begging you. Just for this term, please reconsider. How about a promotion for your daughter? No, a raise. She can even become an executive right now." "Dad, exclamation question mark, but you said I would start from manager because of how it looks to others. An immediate promotion to executive is impossible." At that moment, my dad's look at the two changed to one of disdain. And the boss's pleading eyes were fixed squarely on Carol. Despite this, Carol still seemed dissatisfied with the difference between what her father had said about my position and her own treatment. I almost felt sorry for the boss with such an oblivious daughter. But I had reached my limit and couldn't hold back anymore. "You plan to put a woman who called us lowly, poor employees and was rude to Dad in a position of authority?" I blurted out. "Well, my daughter doesn't understand because she hasn't experienced the real world yet. She'll learn to respect others through the hardships of society." "Respecting others has nothing to do with social experience," I interjected, louder than I intended. Carol looked up, startled, and I addressed her. "A company cannot function without its employees. Even someone who has never been an executive, like me, understands this. But you don't. Why? How would I know that?" Carol seemed genuinely clueless. "Do you think being a daughter of privilege puts you above others?" "Of course. I'm from a different upbringing. It's not my decision, it's God's." To Carol's nonsensical reply, I forced a smile. "Then, as the daughter of this company's boss, I'm higher than you, right? You'll listen to me?" My smile was apparently so frightening that Sissy later told me it scared Carol, whose composure vanished. "Fine, what do you want? This company is not your playground. If you want to play, go find your college friends." Carol hung her head in shame, her face flushed. Sissy quietly applauded me. "Well said. That's my daughter." Dad laughed heartily. After that, Sissy and I spent a hectic month at work. But the second half of the busy season was unexpectedly calm. Each time our supervisors and colleagues looked puzzled, Sissy and I exchanged knowing smiles. A month later, Sissy and I resigned and joined my dad's company. Our previous company began to decline drastically. Rumors quickly spread that the abrupt termination of the contract with a major firm was to blame, prompting other companies to reconsider their dealings. Sales plummeted by 40%, most employees started job hunting, and the company's decline accelerated. The general meeting decided the crisis was due to the boss's fault, and he was ousted. His brother is now trying to rebuild the company. According to Dad, this brother is well respected. The company might be reborn into something better. On the condition that the former boss's family no longer be involved, Dad began moves to restart dealings with them. I also heard from Dad that the former boss's family began to lose their possessions, eventually selling their house. I don't know where they went, but I doubt a family accustomed to such wealth could adapt to normal life. In fact, Carol reportedly got a job at a grocery store, acted arrogantly to customers, got into an argument, and was fired within hours, becoming somewhat of a legend. In my personal life, I managed to convince Dad to let me start as a regular employee instead of directly becoming an executive. However, I'm aware that I'll eventually take over the company. So, I balance my everyday tasks with assisting the executive team. Constantly amazed by their innovative ideas that never occur to me, sometimes feeling overwhelmed. But every time I feel like my head is about to explode, Sissy is there by my side, saying, "Lenore, let's finish this task first. Then we can decide the priority for the next ones." Her support keeps me grounded. Sometimes the pressure of being the boss's daughter feels crushing, but with Sissy around, I can stay confident and cope. Interestingly, Dad also likes Sissy, and sometimes the three of us go out for drinks. Every time Dad gets tipsy and tells this joke, "Lenore will be the next president, and Sissy the next executive officer. Don't even think about getting married and retiring, you too." He often tells this story laughingly. However, What Dad doesn't know is that I'm secretly in a relationship. My desire to get married is still a secret from Dad.